How does ASD present itself in schools? So the teacher's perspective. When we see ASD in our classrooms, we'll probably see it through social communication differences, which means lack of eye contact, missed social cues, intense interests. My learner is currently interested in Harper seals. I'm learning a lot about adaptations and the habitat. It's very interesting, and it's much more school appropriate than Five Nights at Freddy's, which was what last month's intense interest was. We also see restrictive and repetitive behaviors. Stimming can take the form of many different movements, from finger tapping, hair curling, or full body movements. Some learners have echolalia, and other students will see it as hypersensitivities to sound or light, or hyposensitivity to sound or lights. During this course, that was something that was new to me. I didn't know what hyposensitivity was or how it manifested itself in students, which I came to learn about as that students weren't receiving enough stimulation from their senses. So our learners with ASD also, there's also challenges and strengths within our learners. And that would be, we see it as challenges might look like overstimulation. Our students might face challenges with transitions. They might struggle with their executive functioning tasks. They'd have difficulty with organizing or planning, certainly staying on task. And in my context, difficulty with their ATLs. So things like self-management, time management, research, unless it revolves around their intense interests. We also have strengths, which are very strong memory, pattern recognition, and of course offering unique perspectives and interests when we open it up to classroom discussions. It's important for us as educators to be recognizing both the challenges and the strengths that our learners have. But also important is when we're looking at the challenges and the strengths that's our perspectives. But what is the student's perspective in the classroom or at school? So we might see the challenges that manifest itself, or the challenges might be sort of like learning challenges or academic challenges in the classroom or behavioral challenges in the classroom. But we're also looking at hardships that our learners are facing on a day-to-day. So students are often mistreated because of their differences or their inability to understand social cues. They're excluded from games on the playground or during PE. They struggle to make friends and experience loneliness. I don't know about you guys, but I've heard a lot throughout this year that things such as like, you don't understand. Why won't people play with me? I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. And when I hear that from my learners, the only thing I can do is sit down beside them and offer them comfort and talk to them about how do we face these challenges, and that everyone faces these kinds of challenges, and look for strategies for how we can work our way through them. But on the other side of this, our learners also have celebrations, and those celebrations are things that we need to approach daily, or look at daily rather, to make sure that they're being celebrated in school. So we have over the top feelings of success when our learners experience a growth in social skills. They're having an amazing feeling when they've had a success, and I know that I have an amazing feeling when they have a success in their social skills. When they make a connection with a peer, you think, oh, all that hard work they put in has paid off, and you just hope that holds together and develops into a network of a social network of peers. We need to be celebrating these successes, the small successes. We need to be celebrating academic strengths, unique interests. We need to be celebrating talents, and we're always promoting advocacy and helping them to make connections with anything at school. But one thing that for our regular teachers that we don't notice is that when our learners go home or when they're still at school, their perspectives are not just what's happening in the classroom. They're also looking at, we have to remember that they're also experiencing other classes, or they're going to other interventions with other specialists. So we're looking at, we got to remember that they're tired, and when they go home from school, they're also going to be maybe they have occupational therapy, maybe they go to speech therapy. They might have we might have specific behavioral interventions or academic supports that are tailored just for them, and we have to think of what's their perspective when they're receiving these kinds of supports and their peers are not receiving these kinds of supports. I know from my own experience that my learners have asked, well, how come I get to do these fun lessons and nobody else does? And from there, we just have to have a conversation about it. And usually my learners have a pretty good perspective on things. So, speaking of perspectives and hardships and challenges, this moves into how can we help? So this moves into behavior identification and intervention plans. So in our school's context, we have our student support plan that we use to talk about accommodations and strategies and interventions that we're using in the classroom. But it's kind of flimsy at best. What I would propose putting into our school system would be an antecedent behavior consequence chart to track behavior. This is something very similar to what another teacher had done in a Google form, which allowed us to look at what behaviors we were seeing throughout the day and quickly add that to a spreadsheet. An ABC chart's a little more in depth than that. It's open, but we're looking more at what are the antecedents that are causing the behaviors, not so much what that behavior is. Yes, we're looking at that as well, but we're also looking at the consequence of the behavior. So what's happening after the child performs this behavior, and are our consequences that we're giving or the way we're responding, is that reinforcing the behavior that's happening? So if our teachers were using an ABC chart in their classroom for tracking and monitoring behavior, then we would start to be able to see patterns and start to put in more significant changes into our support plans and our day-to-day, as opposed to just kind of saying, okay, this keeps happening and I want it to stop. How do I fix this? And then either a teacher just trying to come up with their own plan, and maybe it works, and then it just comes down to trial and error. But if we had an ABC chart, if every teacher was using an ABC chart, then as a group we could get together and collaboratively find evidence-based practices that would work for this scenario. Now, ideally, I would ask my school to have functional behavior assessment for our students that have a little more, that have more behavioral challenges. The functional behavior assessment is more in depth, and it would analyze why our behaviors are occurring and guide the development of effective intervention plans. It would also help us to understand the underlying causes of the behavior, and that would help us to ensure that our responses are supportive rather than punitive. Again, and this would create pathways for a positive behavioral change within our students. Now, kind of misspoke there. They're not punitive. It's more like a consequence of, be more of a corrective. They're more corrective in that sense. However, because we're a private school, and again in Taiwan, the functional behavior assessment can only be performed by a certified member of the Taiwan Association of Behavior Analysis, which is located in Taichung. Now that's about 250 kilometers away from our city. And the cost for that, if we were a public school, it's free. But since we're a private school, it costs 45,000 NT dollars, which is about 1,500 US dollars, just to get that started. So we'll work on that, but for now I don't think it's going to happen. So what can we do? We can have ABC charts for behavior tracking, and we can use the Ziggurat model.